The episode begins with Mordecai and Rigby's constant arguments over small everyday issues, most of them triggered by their shared living space and their drastically different approaches to responsibility. Their room is messy, chores are being ignored, and they keep stepping on each other's nerves with petty disputes that escalate into shouting matches. Benson becomes fed up with their constant fighting and delivers an ultimatum demanding they start behaving like responsible adults or face consequences. This sets the foundation for the episode's central idea: enforcing rules at home to restore balance and prevent their usual chaos from spilling into the rest of the park. Infuriated and feeling misunderstood, Mordecai and Rigby decide to take matters into their own hands by creating a strict set of house rules they believe will solve everything. Their intention is to keep order and protect their friendship, but in typical regular show fashion, their plan becomes more complicated than expected. Mordecai wants reasonable guidelines about cleaning, respecting boundaries, and managing chores, while Rigby wants self-serving rules that give him more privileges and fewer responsibilities. This initial disagreement establishes comedic tension and leads to a series of poorly thought-out rules that contradict each other and introduce new problems instead of solving old ones. They write the rules down on a list that steadily grows out of control. At first, the rules seem harmless or quirky. No touching each other's food, no stealing clothes, no waking each other up early, and no cheating at games. But Rigby insists on adding bizarre and unnecessary rules designed to benefit himself, like forbidding Mordecai from using certain items or declaring specific areas of the room as Rigby-only zones. Mordecai retaliates by adding equally petty rules aimed at preventing Rigby from causing chaos. Their rulebook becomes a passive-aggressive battleground, filled with escalating restrictions that stir resentment rather than cooperation. The turning point comes when they decide to bring the list to life by giving it authoritative symbolism, maybe posting it dramatically on the wall or treating it like a sacred contract. In doing so, they inadvertently imbue the rulebook with exaggerated narrative weight, opening the door for the supernatural twist. Each time they enforce one of the rules with intense emotional energy, the list reacts subtly, glowing or shifting as if recognizing their conflicts. This build-up sets the stage for the moment when the rules themselves manifest into a literal force. When their argument reaches its peak, the rulebook becomes animated by their frustration and transforms into a sentient, authoritarian entity that interprets the rules with absolute and ruthless rigidity. This being, often depicted as a giant floating list or a humanoid figure composed of rules, begins enforcing every rule they wrote in ways that go far beyond their intentions. Minor offenses trigger extreme punishments. The entity rewrites the environment to ensure compliance, turning their home into a labyrinth of booby traps, alarms, and exaggerated disciplinary measures. Small missteps, like leaving crumbs on the floor or crossing into the wrong side of the room, result in absurd consequences meant to highlight how unreasonable their rulemaking has become. The episode shifts into a chaotic survival scenario where Mordecai and Rigby must navigate the exaggerated results of their own pettiness. They dodge traps, try to reason with the rule-enforcing entity, and attempt to repeal rules that now threaten their safety. Their friendship becomes strained as they blame each other for the escalating situation, each insisting that their own rules were justified while the others were extreme. This emotional conflict mirrors the physical danger they face, showing how unresolved tension can grow into something uncontrollable. During the climax, the rule-enforcing entity corners them, accusing them of breaking nearly every rule they created. Mordecai and Rigby realize that the only way to stop this chaos is to admit their mistakes and work together. They acknowledge how their anger and stubbornness turned simple household disagreements into an absurd system of restrictions that neither of them truly wanted. This moment of honesty weakens the entity's power, because its strength depends on their conflict and resentment. When they finally apologize to each other and tear up the list, the entity collapses and the environment returns to normal. In the aftermath, their room is damaged and they are exhausted, but they feel relieved. Benson arrives just in time to witness the destruction and scolds them again, but Mordecai and Rigby show that they learned something from the ordeal. Instead of relying on strict rules or childish retaliation, they need to communicate and compromise. They agree on a few simple, reasonable guidelines to keep their space livable, but they avoid turning them into rigid laws. A final comedic moment occurs when Rigby tries to sneak in one last ridiculous rule, prompting Mordecai to chase him around the room, ending the episode on an energetic, humorous note that maintains the series' tone. This episode emphasizes the importance of balance in friendships, showing how too much structure leads to suffocating order while too little leads to chaos. It reinforces the idea that communication and mutual understanding are ultimately more effective than strict rules, no matter how well-intentioned. By blending relatable roommate conflict with surreal exaggeration, the episode transforms a common problem into a comedic supernatural adventure that fits perfectly within regular shows' distinctive style.